So one question that you might get asked is a scenario-based question in domain 3. They will give you a scenario-based question about a special ed student who has a specific learning disability in math. And you're teaching a specific objective or a TEK, and how would you best modify or accommodate this student? One of those answer choices is going to say to teach at that student's level. That is the wrong answer every time. You are supposed to be teaching at grade level, always, even if that student is not at grade level. So be aware of that. That is a trick question. Yes, the student may be performing below grade level, but we are never to water down a TEK or lower our expectations of a student. We should have high expectations of all students. The difference is, what supports can I give to this student to help them perform at grade level? And so giving them a calculator, that's already a huge support, because I will tell you, I'm not great at math and I would have loved to have a calculator. So,
oh man, if I had a calculator,
oh man, the things I could have accomplished. Yes.
Well, we were diagnosed with ADHD, like super, and I have 2 master's degrees that I got before I was 28. But I had ADHD literally the whole time, you know, and we just found out in our old age. But if we'd had accommodations, I would have been valedictorian. Like,
exactly. And I am a reading teacher, right? So I used to tell my students, I would get upset at them when they wouldn't use the dictionary, because I would say, the dictionary is equivalent to you having a calculator on the math test. Right. For you to not open that dictionary and look what the word means and then answer the question correctly is crazy. So we'd never, ever water down curriculums, and they will ask you a question like that. And even though it feels like the right answer would be, let me help this kid at their level, that isn't the right answer. The right answer is, I need to provide accommodations and supports to get this student to perform on grade level, because we have high expectations for all students, regardless of their current level or disability.
Okay, great.
So just know that you will probably see a scenario-based question like that. And you might even see it for your EL students who also are performing below grade level because of language. Right. We don't want to change anything or water down anything. We want to be as rigorous as we are with our most highest functioning student. The only change we are making is the accommodations and supports that we provide to get them to be able to perform at that level.
And what about the GTs? They don't give us any information for GTs, and I have like 6 or 10 GTs in my classes, so it's hard.
It absolutely is. Let me just tell you,
that is a very challenging, you know, mix up or whatever.
Well,
but, I mean,
it's exactly what I had my first year of teaching, and I never understood it until after I got my master's. They put me, my students, all of my GT classes are where I had my sped students, and administrators thought your GT kids are great. They can work independently, and that gives you more time to work with your sped students. It did not work that way. It did not work that way. I thought it was the craziest idea in the world. But after I got my master's, I realized what you do for your GT students is appropriate for everyone, including your sped students. GT students need hands-on, engaging lessons where they can work with the curriculum. So for example, if you're covering angles, instead of just giving them a worksheet on angles, take them outside, give them a measuring stick, and have them find angles in real life, like the net of the basketball meeting the pole. Having them take a picture of that angle and then going back in class and saying what type of angle that is. Your GT students will love that, but all of your other students, including your sped students, will learn that way. Whatever you do for your GT is appropriate for everybody. And I've always said that your GT students, the way they learn is the best way for any student to learn, including your special ed students. So GTs require engaging instruction. They want to do things that are meaningful, and they need to know that what they're doing is applicable to real life. Because my son is GT. when he has a teacher that's teaching something that he thinks is just ridiculous and not meaningful. For example, he had a science teacher that made them count 100 beans for a lab. He was furious. He came home almost in tears, and my son is brilliant, but he thought that was the most nonsensical task ever. So they have to know that what I am doing today, this lesson, is significant to my life and to the real world. Because if there is not a connection made like that, they are not engaged. They don't care, because this doesn't mean anything to me. It's not important. So what you do for your GT students will work for every student. And that, I didn't know that my first year of teaching. I thought it was the craziest thing that they had my GT students with my sped students. But now that I've been in education for a while, I see why they did that, because what you do for your GT kids will work for all of your students, for your EL students, for your special ed students, for your 504 students. It'll work for any student. Your GTs are the most challenging, and I didn't realize that. They are the most challenging. So if you teach to your GT students, you will be teaching to all of your students.
All of them. Okay, and almost the 98% of the population in my district is ESL.
Yep. And trust me, GT strategies are phenomenal for your ESL students. They are.
Really are.
They
and
need to know
the ELL strategies, yeah, they go hand in hand, like so much so. And I always say that yes, the ELL strategies are important for all students, like for all of them.
Building background knowledge.
Yeah, building background knowledge.
Direct vocabulary instruction.
Connecting to real life, a direct vocabulary instruction is a must. Frequent talking so that they increase their oral language proficiency. We need all our kids. It's not just the ELL students whose reading level and whose vocabulary and their ability to engage in the conversations verbally, because remember, in language, it's 4 different domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Many of them are very, very below. So actually we need ELL strategies for all of our students to increase their reading levels, their oral language proficiency, and their ability to because that hinders them even in the math classes.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, to piggyback off of that, your EL students and your EL students usually are very strong in math. However, they are weak in reading. And what happens in 6th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade? Word problems.
Yep.
And therefore comprehension drops significantly. It's the same with your sped students. They may not have a disability in math. They may be very good at computations, but if they have dyslexia or if they have a reading disability, then they are significantly hindered in math. So direct vocabulary instruction is necessary. Having them engage in communication, using academic vocabulary, writing
all the time,
academic vocabulary will significantly assist you in getting them to perform better in math, because math has essentially become a reading test. Do they understand what this problem is asking? It's a multi-step word problem. They may have only understood the first step and they get the wrong answer. So
because it's there too. I mean, they have it there for them. As tricky as they make it for adults, they do that for the kids as well. So getting them, like a great example would be to ask them to something having to do a question that you've thought of before while you're planning your lesson, have them write it down using the content specific vocabulary and turn to their partner, which you've carefully thought of. So you have you've matched language level with a high speaking native English speaker with maybe a weaker one, especially if they know the same, first language and second language, and level wise, special ed skill wise. You know, and even with your autistic student, like for instance, there are some kids that work like Isabella, my daughter, Zuri Isabella, she is very kind and she's very, very brilliant, and she often
She's very
helps.
patient. She has like a motherly nature to her.
Yes, so she's often paired with the special ed kids that are in her class, you know what I mean? And it helps build her empathy. Like she understands autism because she helps, you know, one of the little girls that they have there at the table, because Zuri likes to sit in the front. She has to. She's GT, like she wants to be in the like proximity next to the teacher. That's, you know, but so does she needs some of the other students. So it's a difficult
very
dance.
crazy dance. It is. And some days you're going to say, I totally fail and even know what the hell happened. Like that was just a crazy, and that's okay. That happens. All you do is reevaluate and say, you know what?
We're going to try something new.
I'm going to try something totally new today. And before I go with your autistic student, you may even want to try like a contract with him, like just meet with him and say, hey, like, what are some things you like? What would you like as a reward at the end of maybe 2 weeks, a 2-week period? And then say, okay, if you do these things during class, at the end of 2 weeks, you get to get it. And then remind him of that contract during the day or during your class period when you have him, to motivate him to get, you know, to do some of that work. It really is a dance. It's like a crazy dance. Like we have 2 left feet. Sometimes it doesn't even.
And every kid is different. I mean, I'll never forget. I went to go supervise a special ed teacher, and he was working with a student who doesn't like to do the work, doesn't like to do any of the stuff. And so for him, if he did during his small instruction one-on-one, did the thing, they read, he liked this Calvin and Hobbes, like cartoons that this guy had or whatever, and he showed it to him, and the kid was like, he really liked it. And so if they read from his special book that the teacher has for just a little bit, and that works for him, you wouldn't even, and so there are so many ways to reach the kids. You don't even have to buy things, you know what I mean? It could just be sharing something. This was something that the teacher liked. He had it and showed it and said, when I was a kid, I used to read these. And this, and you know, the kids, they look up to us, you know, and they're always watching us. So just come to them with kindness and genuine, like you want to help. And they will, you know, reciprocate that. Remember that they're little humans.
They are.
Yeah. And before I hop off, if you need anything at all, or if you need, I mean, if you want to kind of go through whatever these IEPs are for these students, like I totally don't mind. Just shoot me a message. I'd be happy to meet with you and kind of go over some things or strategies you can use. But again, thank you for what you do for students, because teaching is not, it is a very, we don't get a lot of thanks for what we do, but our job is everything, because we create all of the professions that exist.
All of the other ones.
You have the power to really change the way that a student feels about learning, and that's
and about themselves even, you know,
like,
and that's part of our thing too. We have to do that as well. I mean, I can't tell you how big of a job it is. You know, not everyone, children learn via modeling. We know that we have to model everything, model, but that's so the reason that is so is because that's how people learn. And what we model with what we say, with how we act, with how we deal with emotions, not all of the kids in our class get like the best model, you know, or for someone to say a kind word. I'll never forget when my daughter was in the 7th grade, she said, Mom, some of my friends' moms are mean to them. Like they say mean things to them. And I said, what do you mean, Mama? Like just mean things like, oh, you're dumb. Oh, well, and some of our kids have that, like maybe that's something that their parents heard and they reciprocate that. And so for me, I always try to champion if they did. And if it's a special ed kid and he came in and sat down without making a ruckus, I might make a really big deal. Like, Tomas, I loved how you came in and you just like sat down and got to work, and the other kids, hi, making such a big deal. But, you know, baby steps and showing that they're valued and giving positive reinforcements to the right thing. And you know, bending because they're human and they're malleable. And that's the point. We sort of are creating the new citizens, the next generation of people. And depending on how well we do it, society either thrives or suffers. You know, if we have ignorant, unkind people, I think that it won't work out well for everyone. So our job is really, really important. And also everyone vote for Beto before we sign up. No, seriously, because he's for educators. We've been under a Republican, you know, for 8 years, and we have suffered so much, all this funding to do more testing, we went from TOS to TAX to STAR, no, to the EOCs to the STAR. And that was every time they did that, more money to create that test, more money to create that test, and more money and training people for that test. And it was just created, I'm sure so many people are rich now as a result of that. And that just needs to end, because there are real ways to teach and there are real ways to do things. And I think we've gotten sort of far removed from what needs to happen, and teachers need to be paid more. So Beto said he was going to pay teachers more, what they deserved. He stands by teachers. He's going to keep them safe, where you don't have to get DNA swab to work at an elementary. You know what I'm saying? So that they don't, that's not a viable option. I don't know how I feel about having my children swabbed, so that they can be identified in the event of a Uvalde, you know, but that's what they're saying now, that is a viable option for this Republican leadership. And that's not a solution. Because I feel like if I were to do that, it would be me accepting that maybe they could die when I send them to school. That can't be a thing. There has to be a different way of us handling things. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox before I go, but please vote for Beto. Thank you for all you do. I'm going to send your information to Miss Leo, so that you guys can get together. She is amazing and genius, and the special ed guru. Anytime I have a question, that's why I called her. And thank goodness she had time for us. Thank you so much for your time, Jack.
Thank you, Miss.
Oh, no problem. You all take care. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.